Good morning, everyone. We are back this week and we're going to finish up our measurement unit and talk about metric mass today. So, we've already talked about volume and capacity, we've talked about weight, and the last thing we have to talk about is metric mass. There are only 3 units of measure that you need to know for metric mass, and that is gram, which is the unit, the base unit for metric mass, and then you have milligrams, and then you have kilograms. 1 gram, if 1 gram is the basic metric unit for mass, then 1,000, it takes 1,000 milligrams to equal 1 gram. So the milligram is 1,000 times smaller than the gram. Okay. Then you have up here comparing a kilogram to a gram. So 1 kilogram equals 1,000 grams. So it would have to take 1,000 grams to equal 1 kilogram. So 1 kilogram is very large. So going from the largest unit to the smallest for these 3, we have the kilogram is the largest unit, gram, which is the basic metric unit for mass, and then you have the milligram, which is the smallest. Those are the only 3 that we're going to be comparing for this unit. In your Go Math book, it has the definition for gram, mass, and kilogram. I'm going to read it straight from the book. The gram is the basic metric unit for measuring mass, or the amount of matter in an object. And we talked about last week the difference between weight and mass. So mass is the amount of matter in an object. Mass can also be measured by using the metric unit kilogram, which is what I just talked about. Now, they don't talk about milligrams as much in the Go Math book, but it is still something that we're going to be converting back and forth. So milligrams, grams, kilograms. Okay? And then I also wanted to talk about how we measure mass. So if we measure weight using a scale, and the units for weight are pounds, ounces, and tons. Those are the 3 that we talked about last week. The way that we measure mass is by using a balance. So it's like a seesaw. You have to have 2 of, trying to get this balanced on the screen. You have to have 2 things, like a seesaw. The 2 sides of the balance have to be equal. So you would take a known object, the mass of a known object, and compare that to an unknown object. So I'm going to read it straight off of our HISD website, the way that we are going to be, or the way that you would measure something's mass. It says mass, so I'm going to read the whole thing. Mass is a measurement of the amount of matter something contains, while weight is the measurement of pull of gravity of an object. We talked about that a lot. Mass is measured by using a balance comparing a known amount of matter to an unknown amount of matter. So if we were in class this week, we would be using our balance scale. I know a lot of y'all don't have anything like that at home, so it might be fun to look up a YouTube video of someone using a balance scale. But you would take gram weights, and we did this in science, so hopefully you'll remember back to when we did that. You take your gram weights and your object, and when the 2 sides of the balance scale are equal, you count up how many grams are on one side of the balance scale, and then that would be equal to the amount of mass of the object that you have on the other side of the balance. So if you happen to have something like that at home where you can kind of play with 2 sides of a balance scale, otherwise the best thing, since we don't have all of our manipulatives at home, the best thing that you could probably do is just look up a YouTube video, type in how to use a balance scale. Make sure you always Google for kids, so that way you're not pulling up some high school or college description of how to measure using a balance scale. So how to use a balance scale for kids would be a really good thing that you could do to practice. But most importantly for this unit, guys, is just knowing what objects you would measure using milligrams, grams, or kilograms. So picking the best estimate. Would you use a gram to measure the mass of a paperclip, or would you use a kilogram to measure the mass of a paperclip? So knowing the different units of measure and which ones are the best units of measure to measure the mass of certain objects is really the biggest goal here for this unit. So if you have any questions, please send me a message on Teams. I know this is pretty brief, but it's, like I said, it's not something that we can practice with because the balance scale isn't as common in each of your houses. So anyways, let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you have a great day. Bye, guys.